Hey guys, so today we're going to be talking about a case that is absolutely gobsmacking. I came across this, as always, on my timeline, and honestly, I have a feeling this is not going to get as much attention as it should, hence why I'm discussing it here. Anyway, let's just get into the situation at hand. Texas high school football star Austin Metcalf stabbed in the heart, left to die in twin brother's arms at track meet. So based on this title, you'd think that this would get a lot of coverage, and granted, when I looked it up, there are multiple articles. There is a significant amount of coverage in that respect. Now, I don't watch the news, but based on what I've seen on social media, I only saw like one or two posts about this, which I kind of was surprised about because considering the violence of this attack, you'd think, especially with their ages, like high schoolers, you'd think more people would be talking about this. Then again, it's a breaking news story, quote unquote, so it might take a second before people catch on. But I really hope this doesn't go under the radar because I've said it before and I don't mean it facetiously at all. High schoolers scare the shit out of me. And part of it is because I think people who didn't develop any type of empathy in high school with hormones and all that shit will just act in ways that are unpredictable in terrifying ways. I'm not saying that's what's going on here because obviously I don't know the backstory of the attacker. A Texas high school star athlete was stabbed in the heart and left to die in his loving twin brother's arms following a fight over a seat at a track meet, the boy's heartbroken father said. Austin Metcalf was attending a track and field championship between the other area schools at don't know how to pronounce, stadium in Frisco, Texas, when the fatal attack happened on April 2nd. Metcalf, a junior at Frisco's ISD's Memorial High School, was in the stands at the stadium when a confrontation broke out between the teen and 17-year-old Carmelo Anthony. Anthony, a senior at Centennial High School, was allegedly told he was sitting in the wrong seat before he drew a knife and launched his attack. Metcalf's father, Jeff Metcalf, told NBC Dallas-Fort Worth. Anthony, 17, allegedly stabbed Metcalf in the chest as his victim's brother, Hunter, watched in horror. You know, where to even begin with something like this? Now, I'm going to insert a video because there was a news video or whatever of the twin brother, Metcalf's twin brother, explaining what happened. He's obviously still very much in shock, so it's not the most cohesive storytelling of this happened and this happened and this happened, but it gives you an idea, and I think it's also important as much as we can to humanize these stories because I definitely know that, you know, once you consume a lot of true crime, I'm not saying this goes for everyone, but I have seen people become very immune to like the gravity of everything. And as much as I don't think you should lose your mind every time something happens because that's no way to live, God knows, it's also like these, when I call them stories, it's because I'm referring to them as news stories, right? But they're not stories in the way of like, oh, this thing happened as if it was fiction, so it doesn't really matter, or it's not really going to affect me, whatever. You know what I'm saying? It's good to find that middle ground, and I feel like on social media, we're starting to see that less and less, where certain cases nobody gives a fuck about because of whoever the victim might be or what they identify as, and then we see people going into hyper fucking analysis about everything, and I don't see many people in a moderate middle where you can address that something's fucked up while also not going off the deep end. Does that make sense? Here's a video of the twin brother kind of explaining what happened.
There was this kid, before I knew his name now, this kid was sitting under our tent at track. We asked him to move. He started getting aggressive and talking reckless. And my brother stepped in and said, "You need to move." He's like, "Make me move." Austin grabbed his backpack. The kid, I tried to whip around as fast as I could, but I didn't see the stab. But then I look at my brother, and then I'm not going to talk about the rest. So just that's just what I saw. And I tried to help him, but
it was just senseless.
It was really senseless. Really, I don't know why a person would do that to someone just over that little argument. It's just crazy in this world nowadays how people just up and do that. Like that man has a family. That man has people that care about them all the time, and he did everything for our family too. He was a strong man. He was a strong kid.
This video I think is particularly hard to watch, not only because of what happened, but also you can hear the grief. You can hear the stifled cry. Like his voice made me horrendous. I don't know how it must be to witness something like that, and I don't know how it must be to basically see your sibling, your twin, no less. I can't imagine, especially over something as silly as where you're sitting for a track meet, a high school track meet. It never had to turn into this. And this is a big part of what I think is entirely terrifying about society at large today. I think people jump to the most extreme reactions, I mean like actions, right? So like we've seen it with like Karens getting mad at moms in parks for stupid shit, or we've seen things like this escalate. I think that that's what's so terrifying about these news stories, is that they all serve as examples of look how quickly things escalate and look at the lack of self-regulation there is. And now granted, here we're talking about high schoolers, we're not talking about full-grown adults, so it is a different story because I expect adults to act in a different way and have more self-control than teenagers. At the same time, why did this kid have a knife on him at a track meet? And we're going to get into some comments I saw on Twitter that really fucking bothered me. And that's also part of what concerns me. But anything on Twitter concerns me, so I guess nothing's new. Hunter, who was born 2 minutes after Austin, rushed to aid his brother but couldn't save him. Then it quotes what was said in the video, so I'm going to skip that. Then Jeff Metcalf recalled, they were twins, identical twins, and his brother was holding on to him, trying to make it stop bleeding, and he died in his brother's arms. Hunter Metcalf called his parents to tell him about the stabbing, with their father rushing to the stands to find Austin on a gurney, not breathing. I could see all the blood, and I saw where the wound was, and I was very concerned, so I had to find his brother, and we rushed to the hospital, and we prayed, and it's God's plan. I don't understand it, but they weren't able to save him. This is murder, Jeff Metcalf said. The teen was pronounced dead at local hospital. Despite life-saving measures by police and fire personnel, including CPR and the administration of blood, the 17-year-old died, Frisco police said. Anthony was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. He's being held at Cullen County Jail. No bond has been set. The grieving father questioned Anthony's upbringing and parents as he forgave his son's alleged killer. I'm not trying to judge, but what kind of parents did this child have? What was he taught? He brought a knife to a track meet and he murdered my son by stabbing him in the heart. This guy was in the wrong place and they asked him to move and he bowed up and became angry and aggressive. This is murder, Jeff Metcalf said. You know what? I already forgive this person. Already. God takes care of things. God is going to take care of me. God is going to take care of my family, he added. Anthony, a 5'10", free safety, revealed on social media he had received offers from several colleges, mostly Division III schools. Austin Metcalf was remembered as a star linebacker who garnered attention from schools as he dreamed of playing football in college. He was recently voted his team's most valuable player and held a 4.0 GPA, according to a GoFundMe organized by his father. He was a bright young man with a great future ahead of him, Jeff Metcalf said. He was a leader of men. His smile would light up the world. His passion for football was unbelievable. We will all remember him for the way he impacted others' lives. So this is an obvious tragedy, and I think that, like I mentioned before, the fact that he died in his twin brother's arms must be a type of trauma I can't even conceptualize, let alone the fact of parents burying their children. That's something that should never happen, and I think that's something we can all universally agree on. So this story is just grisly in and of itself, but much like in the interview with Metcalf's twin, it's like all of this was senseless. Like it never had to go that far. And I think that that's part of what makes it 10 times more horrific, is that you can't find a logic behind how things escalated. And I'm not saying that if there were a logic, it would be fine and dandy or whatever. But I do think one of the biggest things humans struggle with is having no answers. And I think this is one of those cases where you have no answers, because realistically, when we ask the question, why did someone sitting in the wrong place at a track meet turn into someone taking out a knife, someone stabbing someone in the heart, blah, 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 we're never going to get to a real answer there, because honestly, the only person who knows the answer is the attacker and perhaps his family. This being said, obviously, social media has just been, you just really think things cannot get worse and you cannot be more disappointed, and you go on Twitter and you're just like, oh shit, wow, okay, no, I can be more disappointed. There is no end to disappointment. So one person said, and they quote the article, I'm assuming, there was a confrontation that was started when the suspect was told he was sitting in the wrong spot, meaning the white guy started all of this over a seat at a high school game. This is the thing about situations like this, is that people will run to play devil's advocate for the sake of playing devil's advocate, and honestly, I don't think you can be helped If you are trying to find some roundabout way where stabbing a high schooler in the heart because they told you you were sitting in the wrong place is justified. So if you're trying to find loopholes as to why the kid who was stabbed deserved it or started it or whatever you want to call it, you are fucking lost and kind of out of your mind. Because even if someone did the most atrocious thing to you, especially in high school, I don't care if this makes me sound like a teacher's pet or whatever, the first thing I would do is find a teacher, have them deal with it. I don't want to deal with any of this bullshit. I don't want to get into an argument with someone for it to not be resolved or for it to turn into a mess. Find a teacher, tell them what the issue is, and you're done. It never had to get to the point of any type of violence at all. Aside from the fact, if someone telling you that you're sitting in the wrong place is enough for you to stab them in the heart, I'm sorry, the person telling you you're sitting in the wrong place is not at fault. I thought this was obvious. Looking at these comments though, I did feel like having a little bit of a toaster bath later because all of these people were just doing these mental gymnastics of why it was wrong to point out that someone was sitting in the wrong place. Now, I don't know the ins and outs of why he was sitting in the wrong place. When I played basketball or when I played soccer, teams would have a very specific place to sit. So if you were on team whatever, you'd sit over here. If you were on team whatever, you'd sit over there. I don't know if this was a similar case. I don't know about track, whatever. But again, did it ever have to be that deep? So then there are people who have theories that what was said was more than you're sitting in the wrong place. People are saying that the N-word was dropped. These are all complete speculations, so I don't really want to give too much credence or time to that. But again, we return to the main thing. We cannot go to the point of justifying violence because something fucked up, unnecessary, a slur. Like, we can't just go there immediately. Because the thing is also, I think society is based on having our own laws in terms of how we behave, our own morality in terms of how we behave and how we react. If we decide to be reactive to everything, no matter how fucked up it is, mind you, we're lost. Like, we're done. It's over. Also, I forgot to mention it prior, but the fact that the father forgave this kid is beyond my understanding. I cannot imagine forgiving the person who did this. And I'm not saying that in a judgmental way. I'm just saying he obviously has a bigger heart than me or a less vengeful heart than me, because there'd be no way I'd forgive a kid for killing my kid senselessly like that. There are plenty of other comments that come up that again go farther into justifying why this happened. And part of these comments are not necessarily only for justification, but they're theorizing that a lot of stuff was left out about the interaction, which I can understand, right? Because it would be a massive overreaction to stab someone over someone telling you you're in the wrong seat. That being said, we can't just say that Metcalf said the N-word or was violent or whatever else that has no proof just because the overreaction doesn't make sense to you. We have to wait to see if anything else comes out. But if nothing else comes out, we also have to maybe address the fact that maybe this person really overreacted. Maybe this person has mental health issues. Maybe this person has issues regulating their anger. There are plenty of other things, but we can't automatically blame the victim just because it seems so surreal that someone would be stabbed over something so quote unquote minute. Here it says, we need to wait until the investigation is over. What was the backstory? You're sitting in the wrong seat could be seen as a threat. It's unfortunate that teens can't fight the old school fight, get suspended and come back. Now it's morgues and jail. Sad. If you think you're sitting in the wrong seat is a threat, okay, again, we're in so deep here. I don't even know how we're going to go on as a society if that's a threat now. But also, if you do see it as a threat, again, you're in high school. You guys aren't adults. Just go to the adults. Have them deal with it for you. But this settling your own shit obviously doesn't work. We're seeing that in real time. So as I said before, there were also a lot of comments saying that there isn't enough national outrage about this, that this story isn't being covered as much as other stories for one reason or another. I agree and disagree in the sense of there are so many news stories, true crime stories that are not covered the way they should be covered. And as much as ideally I would like for everything to be covered equally, we all know that that's not a reality. I do definitely think that a lot of cases that involve children or non-adults or teens, whatever, I do think that those should be covered more Because if we're starting to see a pattern at an age, you'd hope that we can actually stop that or do something to change the direction that things are going. That being said, if it's not reported on, then you can't really make changes, you can't adapt, you can't prepare. So I think there's a lot to be said about that as well. But anyway, you guys can let me know what you think in the comments down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you to my patrons as always, and I'll catch you guys next time.